Did we allow our guests? Not yet, I guess. Aylin hocam.
İstiyorsanız hocam saat şu an 6. Alabiliriz.
We can go ahead and get started. All right. Good evening, everyone. Yes, we still have some folks waiting in line. Did we get them all? I see some familiar faces. Yay. Well, I guess that waiting list is not going to end, so I'll go ahead and get started. Well, good evening, everyone. Dear guests, welcome to our panel event. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Melike Gezer, and I'm an assistant professor at TEDU University's English Language Education program. And tonight I'll be hosting this event with my dear colleague, Aylin, Dewan, Türüdü. And this event is organized for TED University's English Language Education program as part of the Teaching English to Young Learners coursework, actually, that I myself and my colleagues, Ünal and Aylin Dewan Türüdü, coordinated this semester. We're going to delve deep into matters relevant to early English instruction soon. Tonight, we have experts in the field of teaching English to young learners, and we'll be posing some thought-provoking questions to them. In a minute, we're going to get to know them, and shortly after this introduction stage, we're going to go ahead and get started with our questions. As part of this panel event, we asked our dear students to prepare a question ahead of time, and we processed those questions and selected several of them. Toward the end of the session tonight, our students will get to ask their questions in person. Dear audience, please feel free to use the regular Zoom features, such as raising your hand when the platform is open for your questions, or by sharing instantaneous reactions by using the emojis. And needless to mention the regular chat box to drop your quick questions or share your concerns and reflections. I would like to quickly remind you that this is a recorded session. The recording is necessary as this is part of our coursework, and we need to have a backup for our students who might have some valid excuses. So after this friendly reminders, I think it's time for us to go ahead and get started. So why don't we continue on by getting to know our dear panelists? And shortly after that, we're going to start with the Q&A. Yes, dear panelists. Esim hocam, could we start with you?
I think, yes, my microphone is on. Welcome, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be a participant in today's panel with so many future, I think, these are like third grade students, Melike hocam?
Third year, yes,
Third year
mainly.
Students. Okay. So I'm very happy to be with you, prospective teachers of English. I hope that this is going to be a very fruitful event for you. I've been working as a teacher trainer, both pre-service teacher training and in-service training since, well, I'm not going to tell the year, but for 28 years. I've been working with teachers working at state schools as well as private schools. My expertise on teaching English to young learners. My PhD thesis was the first in Turkey written on young learners. So I like this field very much because I enjoy teaching it and implementing certain techniques that I've been teaching at the university in real primary school classes as well. I've been organizing in-service and pre-service teacher training courses throughout the years, and it's a great pleasure to share ideas with teachers and prospective teachers. So I'm very excited about your questions. I hope I can satisfy your need to learn to the degree that I know, if I know the answers. I don't know, but we're going to share some good stuff. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Hocam. Thank you. Beril Hocam, can we continue on with you?
Yes, hello everybody. It's really very exciting to be with you all. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Melike Hocam and Aylin Hocam for inviting me to this wonderful panel event because I believe that it is really a very nice platform for all of us to share our experiences and best practices. We have Esim Hocam here, Semih Hocam here, and Merve. So we will be sharing our experiences from different perspectives. So this makes me excited. Well, I am actually one of the TED family members. I work as the director of the Foreign Languages Department at TED headquarters in Ankara. And it is really a great honor for me to be in this position. I work with a group of 6 people in my team, and we are responsible for the effective implementation of foreign language education in our schools all over Turkey. Previously, I worked at different universities, and I have been involved in ELT for 31 years now as an instructor, teacher trainer, academic manager, and actually, I have been involved in many different projects, both internationally and nationally. And I also worked, in different positions for TESOL Turkey and also INGET. So it is, a great experience for me so far. And as I said, I'm really very pleased to be here with you today. Thank you very much for the invitation once again.
Thank you, Hocam, for being with us tonight. Semih Hocam, could we get to know you a bit more?
Sure. I'm Key Account Sales Manager for Macmillan Education.
Hocam, you muted yourself. Okay.
Okay. I'm the Key Account Sales Manager of Macmillan Education, mainly dealing with the marketing and also training of the ELT books, not only for the tertiary segment, tertiary education, but also for young learners and at the same time, middle-aged learners. I'm an English teacher, mainly, graduated from Middle East Technical University, and then worked for Gültekin University for many, many years, around like 20. And then completed my master's at Gültekin University, teaching English as a foreign language, and then completed my education journey with Hacettepe University, the program of doctorate program for educational management. And then I'm now dealing with completely something else, but again, in the field of education.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us tonight.
It's my
And
pleasure.
thank you, Hocam. And Merve.
Hello, everyone. I wish you all a very good evening. My name is Merve. I graduated from TED University in 2020. And currently, I am working in Bilfen School as an English language teacher. This is my 3rd year in the field. And currently, also, I am studying my master's degree. I am very thankful for this opportunity. So thank you so much, Melike Hocam, Aylin Hocam. I hope it will be a really beneficial evening.
Thank you. And Aylin Hocam, Arzu Hocam, would you like to introduce yourselves briefly?
I'll start. I also work at TED University. I'm at the English Language School and also teach some courses at the Faculty of Education. And I've been working at TED for around 8 years, and it's very nice to be a part of our panel event tonight. And I'd like to thank all our participants and our instructors and our teachers who have also accepted to be a part of our panel. Thank you very much to Beril Hocam, Esim Hocam, Merve Hocam, and Semih Bey.
Okay, my name is Arzu Çarlanoğlu Ural. Actually, I've been working at Gazi University, and I have been working at TED University for almost 5 years as a part-time lecturer. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Hocam. Okay, so we got to know who is who a bit more. So why don't we continue with the questions? So we'll be posing the same question basically to each and every one of our panelists. And they will be sharing their experiences, their expert opinion on those questions based on their professional backgrounds. Aylin Hocam, the stage is yours.
Thank you. So our first question is actually about the characteristics of young learner teachers. So I'd like to ask all our panelists, thinking of young learner teachers you have met throughout your careers, what are some common characteristics or qualities of such teachers? And as a second part to our question, what characteristics do you think help a young learner teacher stand out? And Beril Hocam, if it's okay with you, we may start with you.
Sure, Aylin Hocam, thank you. I think this is a very nice question to start the panel. As I said before, as part of my job, I do a lot of school visits. And I go to different TED colleges, of course, with my colleagues. And we do a lot of class observations. And for sure, I mean, you know, observing young learners classes is one of these, these observations. And what I think about these observations is that, you know, every time I visit a class, I feel really excited because I believe that teaching young learners is maybe one of the most difficult areas in our profession. One of the most difficult, but at the same time, one of the most wonderful, maybe, experiences. Well, I mean, so far, during my observations, I have seen that, you know, these teachers who teach young learners, first of all, have a lot of motivation. And this motivation comes both from the students and also, of course, from the teachers themselves. And of course, this willingness, this motivation, you know, helps them to create a very positive and relaxing atmosphere in the classroom. And obviously, you know, when you have this positive learning atmosphere, as a teacher, you become more creative and you feel more enthusiastic about the things that you teach. So these are actually, I think, on top of everything. You know, this motivation, this enthusiasm, the energy, and also, you know, dedication. Apart from these, of course, you know, I observe that good young learner teachers are always very well organized. What I mean by this is that, you know, they are always well prepared with their materials, lesson plans, and all the activities and everything. Because in young learners' classrooms, there is no room for, you know, maybe some gaps. I mean, maybe we will go into the details about a young learner lesson later. and it might be clearer then. But I think this is quite important. So this organization, I mean, you should always be well prepared for the lessons. And of course, when we say, I mean, well prepared, as I said, there should be the variety in the lesson and the materials, I mean, the use of the materials. So, I mean, these are common things, you know, that I spot in effective young learners teachers. But of course, on top of everything, I believe that, you know, a young learner teacher should definitely have this passion to teach children. And also, they should have a, you know, growth mindset. I mean, lifelong learners, and this adoption, you know, I mean, adopting the growth mindset and looking at their job in this perspective makes them, you know, stand out in the profession. I mean, summarize it like this. I hope
Thank
that
you
is
very
clear.
much. Esim Hocam, would you like to go next?
Of course. I can just divide these traits into 3 groups, some of which Beril Hocam already mentioned, like the affective features of the teacher, the language skills of the teacher, as well as the teaching skills of the teacher. So teaching young learners is totally a different area within EFL, and due to the students' age and cognitive development. Therefore, as Beril Hocam mentioned, most of the affective features like motivation, being enthusiastic about what they're doing, these are all very important traits and necessary traits. In addition to those, I think we need to talk about the language skills of the teachers, because most of the time people think that as we're going to teach children, you know, how much English a teacher needs. Well, the Nuremberg recommendations on the area advises for EU, of course, EU countries. They advise teachers to have at least B1 to B2 level English in order to teach young learners. And this level is, of course, should be accompanied by the fluency in speech. Yes, we're going to start from the simple, as if a baby acquiring their mother tongue with certain chunks within the here and now of the children, with the immediate environment, whatever they need, the communicative, in terms of communication, their communicative needs. But this has to be presented in a very fluent and accurate way. So a lot of the time, people think that the students at primary school won't be able to understand if the information is presented only in English. Well, of course, nowadays, the researchers and experts have started to discuss about the extent L1 can be used in primary school classes. I'm not against that, but I'm not also suggesting you to hold on to L1 as the primary resource that you can use, because there are multiple ways that we can use to limit the amount of L1 in the classroom and present the information in L2. And these require a lot of teaching skills. The first one is the ability to use effective teacher talk. By teacher talk, as you know, the teacher is the major source of information in the classroom, and the input has to be very meaningful. It has to be presented in chunks. It has to be recycled among the activities, and the language should be adjusted to the student's level. The pacing should be adjusted to students' understanding. There has to be a lot of contextual clues. There has to be a lot of gestures and mimicry. Paraphrasing, rephrasing should be a part of the teacher's talk as well. The skills, on the other hand, that a teacher might need, in addition to the affective features, the linguistic features, would be the ability to develop activities and materials. As you know, in primary school, the methodology, the approach that we are following is action-oriented activity-based learning. In action-oriented activity-based learning, we are designing our lesson plans around a context to make learning more meaningful and give students a purpose to learn. So in primary school, children are still at the period of concrete operations. If you remember Piaget's cognitive developmental processes, the children in primary school are still at the concrete operations periods, which means that they can only understand things that are presented to them in a concrete manner. The predominant learning styles, if I ask to you what would be the predominant learning styles of children, I would say that they learn by seeing and doing. So activity preparation, material preparation should be relevant to their dominant learning styles. Listening is not very effective with children because it's abstract. It's like words in the air. It just comes and goes. If you listen to your parents, or if you just observe a mother or a father talking to their children, you would see that how many times I told you to do this, but that the child says, oh, I forgot. And that's true. It's not just, the child is something that the child is saying, because it's true. The children can only see if they touch, do, see, and use multiple perceptions all at the same time. So it means that preparing fill-in-the-blanks activities, multiple choice activities, or exams in a traditional manner is not going to work with children. They have to experience with the language. And preparing activities and materials requires really important skills and understanding how children learn, what their characteristics are, how they differ from the adult learners. So this theoretical knowledge applied to the classroom so that it means something for students. So meaningful input, yes. Contextualized language learning is a must. Using the here and now principle all the time is something that we should do. I talked about giving a purpose for students, and I know I'm speaking too much because I'm sorry. You can just stop me anytime and I can just leave it. But this one thing is important. As children are still in the period of concrete operations, giving them future targets or future reasons for learning English is not going to work, because future is abstract. So how can you teach something to a group of learners who don't need it? Why would Turkish students in Turkey need to learn English? They don't. So what we have to do is we need to embed the purpose, the need within the activities itself, within the lesson plan itself. So saving a princess from the monsters, or the bad knight or the witch could be a purpose for them to do a series of activities, or using certain chunks in a meaningful and purposeful manner. Thank you very much. So I should stop here so that Semih Hocam, I'm sure, will have something to add on top of these.
Thank you very much, Esim Hocam. Semih Bey?
Thank you very much. Well, as far as I have observed, not only during my undergraduate years or graduate studies, well, the ones that I have observed as young learner teachers, innovative. I just go by the adjectives: innovative, encouraging, passionate, idealistic, and also enthusiastic. But I completely agree with most of the things that Esim Hocam has already said. The English language teaching for young learners is a completely different skill, different context, I should say. Why? Because those teachers need to think outside the box, taking issues from a completely different perspective. Unfortunately, not all our teachers teaching in the young learning context are like this, and this has so many reasons. Because we need to just consider the profile of the students, we need to consider the education or the training, the formal training as well as the informal training that they have been receiving. But we need to consider that those young learners need specially trained and well-trained teachers so that their needs can just be addressed, because we are just giving a kind of a formation to those kids at young ages, which gradually and eventually affect their success in the long run, because the success of high school students and also university students and university teachers, the qualities that they need that should exist in students come from the young ages, because their study skills can be equipped at those early years. That is why we need to train our teachers. We need to give the necessary skills, equip the necessary skills of our teachers in such a way that they can just address the needs of the students.
Thank you very much. And now let's hear from Merve Hocam, who, from a teacher's perspective, actively working with young learners now.
Yeah, so as much as I experience young learners can be more challenging compared to adult learners. So I strongly believe that you should be energetic all the time, whatever the condition, whatever the situation is. So, and I believe that in order to be able to teach the language effectively, young learners, teachers, I mean, they should focus on their instructional strategies. So any kind of instruction by the teacher should be very clear and very precise. So otherwise, I observed that young learner students may feel confused inside the classroom. So also the materials and the lesson itself should be arranged in a way that it is learner-centered. So the very first thing I have experienced in my first year, that teacher-centered approach does not work with young learners. Yes, we are the authority inside the classroom, but you still should create an environment where students can approach the teacher to you friendly and where they feel safe. So yeah, but you should find a way to balance it, because when it comes to young learners, the classroom management can be challenging from time to time. So teachers should be patient. So another important characteristic, I believe, is patience. So the teacher should ensure a classroom atmosphere in which students work together, but at the same time, the teacher should prevent the disorganization inside the classroom. And also, if you are working with young learners, you must, I think you must focus on your technological skills, because those students are called as, digital natives. So they acquire language even better with the help of the technology. So I strongly believe that you should work on your technological skills and you should be up to date. And yeah, it's like that.
Thank you very much. Melike Hocam?
I guess it's my turn, Aylin Hocam. Thank you. The next question for our dear panelists. I will go ahead and start with Semih Hocam this time, and I'll tweak the original question in a way to make it more suitable for his professional background. So the question is, for you, what's an ideal young learner classroom or young learner based lesson? And for Semih Hocam, I would like to pose this question in this way. How do publishers assist teachers in creating such environments, ideal, optimal, basically learning environments? Can you maybe lay out some contributions from the publishers' perspectives? Semih Hocam.
Sure, thank you. Let me just try to answer this question, the original question and the
Okay.
Semih's version.
Sure.
Well, when we have a look at the ideal classroom or ideal lesson, first of all, it should be just communicative. I mean, students should just be given the necessary opportunity to communicate, of course, in a meaningful way. And as Merve Hocam has already said, I mean, come on, sit just like with Nelly type of classroom is not possible anymore. And students are active, but teachers need to just control the activity with the help of the necessary classroom management techniques, where I'm not just mentioning the discipline, teacher authority, but well-planned lessons. And the lessons, of course, planned with the help of the objectives in a meaningful way. Because when we are just talking about the lesson itself, we need to consider lessons where students are involved as much as possible. In the comment section, I have seen that L1 should just be minimized. Well, I agree, but I always just believe in not only for adult learners, but also for young learners, the judicial use of L1 in the classroom where necessary, if necessary. But it shouldn't just be something avoided, unless there is something else that need to be considered. And also, at the same time, students need to be trained as independent learners. Because, I mean, we're talking about these days global citizenship. I mean, we need to just consider this as two different terms, as global and citizenship. When we're talking about global, we're not only considering the local environment, local issues, local concerns, but at the same time, the concerns are not only around ourselves, but in a bigger context. Citizenship from the context of having the necessary responsibilities. Okay, and we are not only responsible for ourselves or for our immediate environment, but from a broader context. That is why those students, when we are just talking about the lesson itself, students need to be just trained from the perspective of Bloom's taxonomy. We shouldn't just limit or detain our students in the lower thinking skills. They are also important. I mean, I do not disagree that they are, I do not agree that they are unimportant, but we also need to consider the higher order thinking skills. Name it reflective thinking, name it critical thinking, but students need to be given the necessary space to think, to reflect, which actually make those students more productive if lessons are planned in this way. So, as long as we equip and involve this context and material, we can also consider those students as individual, because those students are not surrounded by the problems only within the classroom, but outside the classroom. That is why learning, I'm not talking about only language learning, but learning continues not only within the classroom, but also outside the classroom. That is why the necessary flipped learning material, and also, as Merve Hoca has already just stressed, teachers need to be prone to technology, making use of technology as much as possible in different contexts. For example, with the help of the material, with the help of the books. Here, I would like to touch upon, from the publisher's perspective, we try our best to make our teachers as communicative as possible, as planned as possible, and also as considerate to teaching with objectives as possible. Because if you're talking about classroom management, I believe that the most important way to classroom management is planned lesson, carefully crafted with objective planning, and also the necessary skills involved. And also those students need to be introduced the real issues that they may just face with, not only in the classroom, but outside the classroom. So with the help of the material that we prepare, we introduce our students the problems or the issues and also the topics that they may be introduced. And also we try to just make them more independent learners with the help of the project material or with the help of the flipped learning material. I have seen or heard many examples where parents need to be involved in such learning journey, but at the same time, there's also another concern. What if parents cannot speak language, cannot speak English? Well, I believe that whether parents do speak English or do not, it's not a big deal, because we're talking about encouragement, and students, young learners, need to find a purpose, a need to speak, to make use of the language as much as possible. With the help of the young learner books, workbooks, pupils books, the technology, the platforms, we try to give them the reason to make use of the language and to produce the language to the most possible extent. Because if you do not find a way, why should you just make use of the language? Either in the classroom, outside the classroom. So with the help of the techniques, with the help of the trainings that we provide, we try to equip our teachers with the necessary skills so that they could just make use of them in the classroom. And also, learning should not be considered only an activity in the classroom, but it's something surrounds students outside the class too. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. So I guess we can say or assume that with your support and contribution to the teachers' professional development, you promote ongoing learning.
That's correct. That's correct.
Extracurricular learning.
That's correct, because with the help of not only the trainings taking place in the classroom or at schools or for those teachers or outside the schools in different activities, we also provide, for example, with the help of the websites, there are open resources where teachers can reach and to watch the webinars over there. I can just type down the address of the website so that without subscription, without membership, any teacher can just go in and have a look at the webinars or download the resources and make use of them in the classroom without any prior permission, which is something quite useful, I believe, for young teachers.
Thank you, Hocam. We would greatly appreciate if you could share those resources or the information of those resources with us, with our, future teachers to English, to young learners who are learning English. So Esim Hocam, I think I heard you sort of answering the second question already as you were answering your first question, our first question, but if we could maybe hear your opinion on our second question. What's an ideal young learner lesson or effective young learner classroom?
Okay, I'll group this again in different subtitles. When we talk about the learning environment, we need to talk about the physical environment, the affective environment, and the instructional environment. The affective environment is the classroom with a positive atmosphere should be flexible. For instance, the teacher and the students should have a good rapport between them and should have a good interactional skills, because children are very demanding, and in primary school they see the teacher like a parent, so they would like to be approved by the teacher constantly. Because of that, they jump, raise their hands, shout, yell out, so that the teacher sees them and responds to their reaction. Flexibility is not that sense, letting everybody jump around and do their own stuff. Flexibility is in terms of understanding each other, listening to what the student has to say, respecting the answers or the contribution of the student in the classroom. In addition, flexibility also refers to the flexibility of resources, teaching methodology, the materials that the teacher brings in the classroom. So a variety of materials, a variety of resources will probably meet the needs of the students with different multiple intelligences, with different learning styles, although they are predominantly visual and kinesthetic. Children would like to feel at home. So home is an environment where they're not very much criticized, yelled at, or I don't know, it's not like a military environment. Home environment is comfortable. So the classroom should be comfortable so that children can contribute, children can interact with each other as well as with the teacher. The physical environment, on the other hand, is a part of that flexibility. The classroom should support peripherally the students' learning. The peripheral learning that I'm referring to is maybe attaching the classroom rules on the walls of the classroom, certain wall dictionaries, important days, circle time activities, questions, certain billboards that students can contribute to could be around. So visually supported environment is also very important. We talked about the affective physical, of course, the desks and the stuff, it's usually up to the class, the school and the management. But again, within the classroom, the physical conditions, the teacher is responsible creating the most comfortable environment. The instructional environment is again related with the teacher. Merve mentioned about being teacher-centered, that it doesn't work with students. I'm sure that you've already learned about teacher-centered learning, learner-centered learning, and there's a third approach, which is learning-centered approach. In learning-centered approach, coming from Bruner's constructivist theory, we put the pressure not on the teacher or the student, but the process. So we need to design the process of learning. So at the end of the education, at the end of the instructional period, if students fail or succeed, it cannot be the teacher's fault. It cannot be the student's fault only. It has to be related with what the teacher did throughout the time, the process, how it is designed, which methodology was implemented, which techniques were used, how appropriate were the activities and materials that were selected, or the materials and activities were good, but the sequencing of those materials and activities were not appropriate with the linear process of planning. In communicative approach, as you know, as you're all familiar with, they just tend to follow a PPP lesson plan, presentation, practice, and production approach. However, presentation, the communicative approach is not going to work with children. We are definitely focusing on interaction. We are definitely focusing on oral communication skills as their primary in primary school. That's the natural order. Children learn to listen and speak before the literacy skills. Therefore, we predominantly focus on listening and speaking with primary school children. In addition, when you observe children around you, they do not write to each other, or they do not read a lot. They can text, SMS, play games, that's fine, but not in the sense of reading and writing that we were assuming as adults, users of language. Children communicate orally. They ask questions. They're never patient. They need quick answers, that they need to develop their listening comprehension. So the materials and activities should encourage students to develop these primary skills as listening and speaking, and then those needs to be supported with reading and writing skills as well. So here we are talking about interactional competence rather than communicative competence. Communicative competence is necessary and should be followed by interactional competence when children are ready to move to the formal operations, the abstract thinking, the hypothetical thinking process. In PPP approach, the presentation stage is actually putting the language as an aim, as a target to be reached at. However, in action-oriented activity-based learning, language is the medium to talk about stuff. So it is a vehicle that we use to ask questions, to learn about different things, to receive information, to communicate, to interact with each other. So the selection of the approach is very important. And this is a part of learning centeredness. So in the planning session of the lesson, of the week, of the term, or the year, the process planning is very important. So probably you heard about understanding by design framework, where we start designing the lesson in a backward manner. So we start with the outcomes, planning the outcomes of the instructional period, and then we decide on the methodology, the materials, the activities, and the assessment. So we look at the end product first. We need to find out or identify the outcomes of the learning process, and then design the lesson, and then design the teaching, the instructional period accordingly. Objectives in a lesson plan, which I call are a wish list. I wish they will be able to do this. I wish they will be able to do this kind of thing. However, if you focus on the outcomes, the objectives will reach the target. So you need to figure out what you want your students to produce by the end of the instructional time. What will they be able to, which skills, which vocabulary, which knowledge, which abilities, which chunks they will be using, and which language functions they will be using and producing. So in order to reach that outcome, you have to design your objectives, lesson materials, activities, and stuff. So the planning process, of the learning environment is multidimensional. So you have to think about the instructional process, the affective features of the children's characteristics, which is related with that as well, in addition to the physical characteristics of the classroom.
Thank you, Hocam.
Thank you.
Thank you. Beril Hocam?
Okay. Now, before this panel, Melike Hocam, I got in touch with some of our teachers who teach at different TED schools, and I asked them to come up with a metaphor, teaching young learners, about a metaphor about teaching young learners. I would like to read one of them for you. And then I would like to highlight some of the important points here in this metaphor. And I think it will really help us to see once again what the ideal young learner lesson is. Because Esim Hocam and Semih Hocam explained everything in detail. So maybe you can make connections to that. All right. So can I read this first one?
Sure.
Okay, I would like to thank TED Izmir College colleagues who sent me these metaphors. Okay, one of our colleagues says, teaching very young learners is much like tending to a growing garden, laying a solid foundation to allow for strong roots to sprout into different directions. Much like we begin with the foundations of daily routines, allowing for the children to be familiar and comfortable in order to step forward with confidence in their learning journey. We then nurture our children with a sprinkling of inquiry, to help with their thirst for knowledge. With our tools, we allow for a strong and vibrant future. Isn't it lovely?
Hocam, it's like a poem.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. Well, I mean, I really like this. And when I looked at it in detail, I just highlighted some of the very, very important things, here. I hope you also spotted them. I mean, there is the mention of, routines. So it is a must, in a young learners class, of course. And making children be familiar and comfortable in their learning environment. So we have been talking about it. And of course, building that confidence in their learning journey. I mean, creating that atmosphere for the students. And of course, here there is this very nice part, sprinkling of inquiry. So that is, I think, a crucial part in a young learner's lesson. I mean, increasing the curiosity, having the surprises at different stages of our lessons, This really makes young learners very, very motivated. Actually, not only for young learners, but it is also, valid for all types of learners. But for young learners, it is, of course, more maybe motivating. And also, again, there is a mention of tools. I mean, the use of the materials, the variety of materials. This is quite important. And I also would like to make a link from this metaphor to another thing. Maybe it is quite important to talk about scaffolding as well, in our classrooms. So with young learners, we should really, try to make the children interested in their tasks first. I mean, creating that, atmosphere and making them pay attention to what you're saying, what the task is. And breaking the big tasks into chunks, the smaller parts. And also keeping the children focused during the lesson by using, different attention grabbers or the soothers, different types of activities. And of course, we should at times point out what the important parts are, making them be focused. And we should also try to show them the other ways of doing the tasks so that they feel confident. I mean, as I said, I found this metaphor very useful and I could link it to the ideal young learner classroom, but I have also other very nice metaphors. Would you like me to share a couple of more? Because I think they will summarize the two questions that we have talked so far. Another one, again from TED İzmir, one of our colleagues wrote a metaphor like this. For me, teaching young learners is art. It's like making pottery. You're presented with the innocent, untouched clay and have the power and responsibility to shape that pottery to the best of your abilities. Teaching young learners is not just teaching, it is shaping a human being for the life ahead. And there is no responsibility as important or as beautiful as this. So this is also lovely. Yes.
I'm just amazed by the way they put it. Yeah, I mean, it couldn't be described any better, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And one more, Melike hocam, and then I know we have limited time. I will stop here, but this is also another nice one. And I would like to thank our colleagues from TED Kocaeli College. Teaching young learners is like getting on a roller coaster with having all the ups and downs, both physically and emotionally. The joy is the reason why you buy another ticket for the next ride.
Wow, how lovely.
Yes.
Speaking of TED Kocaeli, do we have Shara Hocam over there? Or am I mistaken? Am I making things up here? Maybe, yeah. A graduate of TED University ELT program.
Yes.
Kocaeli, right? That's Sakarya.
She was in Sakarya. Yeah.
Sakarya, I'm mistaken.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hocam.
Okay.
Wow.
Welcome.
Very, very nice to put. Special thanks to our colleges, İzmir, right, for the first two, and then TED Kocaeli.
İzmir, Kocaeli, and Antalya. I have some others, but I will share them with you later, Melike Hocam. Maybe you can share them with our students.
Exactly, you were reading my mind, Hocam. I was going to request, those metaphors for my prospective teachers that I'll be working next semester and soon future. Thank you, Hocam. And Merveciğim.
So yeah,
Job now after hearing all of our experts.
So in addition to what Esim, Semih, and Beril hocalarım said, I just want to add one tiny detail. So for me, the ideal classroom is where the anxiety level is low, where students feel safe and comfortable. Because when it comes to young learners, teaching to young learners, I believe it is almost impossible to reach our goals without, providing that environment for them. Until then, they can perform their best. So I want to share one of my observations from my experience of teaching young learners. So in the language teaching and learning process, young learners hesitate to produce the language since they are afraid of being bullied by their peers. So a classroom environment should be created where they can feel comfortable both with the teacher and with their peers, so that they can produce and practice the language. So just like mentioned in effective filter hypothesis of Stephen Krashen, learning does not occur when the process is blocked by a stressful stimuli. So I believe that classroom environment should be created in order to create a efficient, effective learning process.
Thank you all. And I cannot believe we're only covering, finishing up the second question. Aylin Hocam will continue with the next one.
After talking about characteristics of young learner teachers and the classroom, this question focuses on critical thinking, which was a common question among the ones that our students had prepared also. It's widely believed that critical thinking in language teaching and learning is more closely connected to adult learners. We'd like to ask you what you think about developing critical thinking skills in young learners. Maybe we can think of what kind of activities that we can do with young learners, or what aspects of critical thinking can be developed with young learners. This time, maybe we can start with Merve Hocam for a change.
Okay, sure, my pleasure. So if we need to compare young learners with the adult learners, getting a young learner to think critically is not very easy. So in order to achieve that, teachers should arrange a classroom atmosphere where students feel active. So in my lessons, whatever the subject is, I paid great attention to promoting my students' higher order thinking skills so that they can practice the language meaningfully. So problem-solving activities based on the theme that we are doing or the subject can promote critical thinking. I want to give one example from my experiences. So last month we were focusing on the environmental problems and how to solve them. And we did reading, listening, writing, and speaking sessions accordingly. But at the end of the sessions and at the end of that week, I realized that the students were kind of bored and they were not very interested in their topic. So I decided to create a project for them in order to, foster their critical thinking skills. So I wanted them to pick an environmental problem, and then I wanted them to create their inventions to solve that problem. So we got the permission from the ICT department. Twice a week we went to the ICT lab, and the students created their own websites. and they created the logo and the storyboard of their inventions using the online tools such as Scratch and Design Evo. And at the end of this period of time, I realized that they were able to think critically when they worked on their, own products, and when they worked on their own problems that they have picked. So in order to promote critical thinking, I don't know, maybe problem-solving activities may help.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience. Semih Bey, would you like to continue?
Sure. Critical thinking should just be taught at every level, at every stage, because students need, but when we have a look at the critical thinking, it is all about making students look at issues from a completely different perspective. Students, with the help of critical thinking, students could just produce the language. Of course, different techniques, different approaches that are appropriate to students' learning style should just be considered while teaching or while embedding critical thinking in the syllabus, in the curriculum. But critical thinking should just be considered, because when we have a look at the, I'm also just checking my graduate thesis dissertation, because I have listed the components of critical thinking as questioning information, looking at issue from different perspectives, examining underlying issues, application of information, evaluation of information, identifying problem and solving a problem. Well, when we have a look at the critical thinking, actually, we are also seeing or remembering Bloom's taxonomy, because when students, for example, the popular term or the concept these days is global citizenship. With the help of global citizenship, we actually introduce students the issues, the real life issues, but at the same time, we try to activate their skills to think about how they could just find solutions, how they could just consider these issues, and how they think that these issues are part of their life. Because when we have a look at this global citizenship, we can just divide it as knowledge as well as attitudes and actions. Because when we have a look at the knowledge, we are also talking about, for example, the ability to cooperate and work collectively to reach a goal, as Esim Hoca has already just mentioned, while she was talking about not communicative, but interactional. At the same time, when we are just talking about the communicational skills of students, the ability to understand and deliver a message effectively using their first and other languages. And at the same time, when we are talking about attitudes and actions, we always consider activating their questioning skills. So if you design your syllabus, whether backward or the conventional style, by considering the outcomes, you actually give students a chance to produce the language as much as possible. Critical thinking can just be developed at any stage, not only adult learning, but also young learning. But it just gives students an opportunity, with the help of training those students to become independent thinkers, so that they could also consider ideas for the problems that they face every day. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your detailed answer. And Esim Hocam, would you like to share your response?
Of course. Well, critical thinking is something that I give great importance, not just for my teacher trainees, prospective teachers, but also in primary school, even in kindergarten. So yes, as Merve Hocam said, it's a very difficult skill to develop because children are still in the process of learning, having the world knowledge, content knowledge, linguistic knowledge. In addition, on top of that, you want them to think critically. But her suggestion is also very appropriate, like using problem-solving activities, because critical thinking requires a problem-solving skill, or plural. What I would suggest is to design your activities according to students' cognitive development, because in first grade, second grade, third and fourth grades require different tasks and activities to trigger critical thinking. We're always talking about the 21st century skills and the 4C model. As you remember, the 4Cs are collaboration, creativity, communication, and critical thinking. So if you want our students to possess the 21st century skills, we need to stop and ask how, to what extent we teachers possess these 24th century skills. So if you're implementing them as a teacher in our lesson planning and design, then it will be very easy for our students to model what we're doing and use them naturally in their learning process. What I would like to give some suggestions, activity and task examples that might be helpful for you to think about what kind of activities would be beneficial. I love graphic organizers. Graphic organizers are, first of all, very concrete, visual, and students can really develop a frame of thinking by using a graphic organizer. KWL charts before an activity, before a content would be very good type of graphic organizer that you can use. For instance, what you know about the topic, what you want to know about the topic, and at the end of the lesson you can discuss what they have learned. Story maps, if you're doing storytelling, would be very nice. Who are the characters? What are their roles? Where is it, the thing is happening? And what is the conclusion? Could be a very nice graphic organizer. Venn diagrams, compare and contrast of characters, physical appearances, features, characteristics. For instance, you're telling Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs story, and then you can ask to compare the Snow White character with the witch, the queen character, and so that they can use some adjectives to find out similarities, like they're both beautiful, but in the Venn diagram, but they have also some different features as well. In addition to graphic organizers, I would advise you to, for instance, use innovations when, for instance, they are learning a song. A repetitive song like, this is the way we brush our teeth, brush our teeth, brush our teeth. This is the way we brush our teeth every Monday morning. So this song has a lot of repetition in itself, and it is really very easy to adapt to a different theme that they can use the same tune with, and they could only just going to change. This is the way we do our homework. This is the way we walk school. This is the way we tidy our bed. So they can just immediately change the theme and the lyrics and start a song. Another task could be a prediction. For instance, you're telling a story, asking students predictions throughout the storytelling, or asking students to find a different ending to a story would be a great activity. And when these activities are done collaboratively, they would also be using English as a tool for communication, and they can be as creative as they can be. So with one activity, you would be engaging students with the 4 C's: communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. Another way might be to doing information gap activities where they could now guess think by using the clues, guess what is happening, or define a context, a people, an event maybe could also be good. For lower level students, following an order is a sign of cognitive development. For instance, you tell them a story, you give them a set of pictures related with the story, and then you can ask them to order the pictures according to the storyline, so that if they can sequencing is a very important cognitive skills, and it is related with thinking processes. They would be, that's also the simplest version, like the second graders might be doing that with a simple story. Even first graders can do that, ordering the storyline, ordering the pictures, ordering the events could be a very nice activity that you can use as well. So there are multiple activities that you can use to trigger critical thinking and creativity in the classroom. Although we use them together, creativity and critical thinking are not referring to the same thing. They refer to different things, but they are used together to do, you know, wonderful activities that are enjoyable, fun, and communicative at the same time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Esim Hocam. Our students were actually working on storytelling and preparing a lesson plan for a story. So the activities you shared are quite relevant to, I think, what they were doing. Thank you very much. And Beril Hocam, I'd like to give the floor to you.
Okay, well, I mean, all is mentioned actually so far. I completely believe that critical thinking is a very important life skill, and as Semih Hocam mentioned, I believe that it can be developed from the very early ages, and of course, it is possible, you know, to develop the different skills in our students, but this requires a lot of patience, and it requires a lot of time, and I think teachers really need to be good observers while developing these skills. I think it is completely, it completely depends on how you know your students, how you observe your students. And if you know your students individually, then you become aware of their certain skills and, you know, their development. And this, of course, helps you prepare, you know, different types of materials. Children are really amazing. I mean, when, again, I will refer to my observations, but I always see different, you know, student profiles. But children really, I mean, you know, they can be very creative and they can be very, very interesting, I mean, at certain times. You might never expect, you know, such reactions or, you know, the actions that they take. That's why our job is a bit difficult. That's why I say it, you know, it requires some time and patience. But this also depends on how you train your students from the very beginning. So with all the suggestions that Esim Hocam made and Semih Hocam and Merve, I mean, they talked about these suggestions. I think these suggestions would be really useful to use in the classroom to develop critical thinking. I was going to mention about the stories. They are great tools to develop critical thinking because it again increases curiosity in students and develops prediction skills. And also some matching, sequencing, ordering, categorizing activities. These all help students learn and develop their critical thinking. I have just seen a lesson in which there was a matching activity, matching the, you know, the types of the food with the items, and then, you know, making a link from that activity to another and preparing a service for themselves, the kids, using those categories. So I think this is a very nice example for critical thinking, because there is a lot, going on, matching, categorizing, and making connections. So these could be integrated very easily, but as I said, this depends very careful planning. And you should really, as teachers, you should really sit down and look at your materials, look at all the activities and try to find the most relevant ones, choose accordingly, and have the clear, stages using these materials and activities. So I think these are quite important, crucial points in developing critical thinking in our students.
Thank you very much for all your answers. I think our guests have taken plenty of ideas that they can use for their classrooms. And because of timing, we thought it would be a nice idea to give the floor to our students who had prepared some questions for you.
Mhm.
And Melike Hocam,
Yes.
our first student.
Dear guests, thank you for hanging in there, for remaining with us. I just cannot, listen to our dear panelists enough. I can go on and on, but time is ticking. It has been over an hour now. So I have İlkay Tarman, if she's available, if she's here with us. The stage is İlkay's to pose her question to our dear panelists. İlkay, are you with us?
Yes, hocam.
Okay.
Firstly, thank you all for the valuable information you have shared. My question is to Esim hocam. Some English teachers prefer not to use L1 in their classes at all, but young learners are sensitive and they may have difficulty expressing themselves, and they might feel sad or demotivated when they can't speak. So how can the teacher motivate the students to use English when they are shy or do not want to speak?
Thank you, Kai. That's actually a very good question, and there is a huge debate going on regarding the amount of L1 in primary school or in EFL classes. Well, I'm going to answer your question from two different perspectives. It depends. My answer is going to depend on the context that you're teaching. For instance, if you're teaching in a state school, you'll have like 2 hours of English in second grade and 3 hours in the following consecutive grades. But if you're teaching in a private school, probably you will have 10 to 14 hours of English in primary school with children. So the exposure in these two different contexts is hugely different. The private school context is making it easier for a teacher to use English constantly due to the frequent exposure. However, this doesn't mean that the state school teacher needs L1 as a predominant resource to explain certain information in the EFL classroom. The thing is, if you want to reduce the amount of L1 in the classroom, you have to have a very good, appropriate teacher talk. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do is to think, observe, or imagine an L1 context, an acquisition context, during which a mother or a caregiver is communicating with the child. The child, although 1 year old or 2 years old, do not have another language to communicate with the parents. So they have to understand each other. And observe the mother. How does the mother speak with the child? With a lot of gestures, with a lot of contextual clues. By showing, pointing, doing exaggerated mimicry, body language. And the child, although not able to speak yet, can understand the input. Because the input, the language, is covered with a lot of contextual clues. So the first thing to prevent or reduce the amount of L1 in the classroom is to use contextualized language learning, visually supported language learning, activity-based language learning and focus on oral communication skills. Design activities so that there is a smooth transition from one to the other. So the context will help them to think within a certain frame. And your gestures, your teacher talk, your pacing, your intonation is going to affect the students' understanding. We do not ask L1 children to produce the language immediately. They wait at least a year or more to produce their first words. So that's a natural process. However, there is one advantage of the second language learner. It is the experience of the first language. They have already developed certain mechanisms to make meaning out when it is presented to them in a meaningful context. So automatically, the second language learner, the foreign language learner child will use these mechanisms immediately to grasp the meaning. Children cannot understand the form due to cognitive development. Remember Piaget, concrete operations, no hypothetical thinking. Therefore, everything has to be concrete. And some teachers say that, how are they going to understand the abstract information? They won't, because they don't use abstract information. It's not within their here and now. Look what children are communicating about. Look at children while they're playing, talking with their friends, talking to their siblings, their parents, teachers. Find those topics and relate them to the second foreign language learning environment. They're not talking anything else. They're not going to discuss the coal reserves that are diminishing frequently. They are not going to be concerned about the elections that are coming up. They will be focusing on the games, the computer games that are popular. They're going to talk about, I don't know, a competition that they're going to have at school. They are going to be worried about what they're going to do in the classroom that day, which songs they're going to sing, which stories they're going to tell or listen to, which games they're going to play. Stick with those. Stick with the here and now, to the concrete. So you will see that you're not going to need L1 as much. One condition that you are going to need, and in your explanation, your question, you have also mentioned, there are certain times that the child learner does not need you as a teacher of English, but as an adult to support them. If an emotional crisis is going on, talking with the child, oh, what happened? Why are you crying? It's not teaching English at that moment. The child needs to be hugged. The child needs to be listened to. The child needs to be understood. Obviously, there is something emotional going on there, and that's is the part you might stop being an English teacher and deal with whatever the emotional problem is with your student. So you need to wait. If in 2 hours of language time in a state school, if you use L1 half of the time, okay children, now open page 10. Evet arkadaşlar, sayfa 10'u açıyoruz. Look at the picture. Herkes resme baksın şimdi. What am I doing? Everything that I'm saying is translated to Turkish. If you were a language learner, would you try to listen the English instructions or wait for the Turkish one? Because the teacher is going to say it anyways. And if I only have 2 hours of English, and if I'm using Turkish half of the time translating my instructions, well, actually I'm teaching English just for 1 hour. And it's not fair to the students. So be wise, be a good teacher, check your teacher talk instructions, use chunks. Children have a great ability to grasp the chunk from the context. You don't have to explain word by word. You don't have to explain the grammar. They'll just grasp it and start using it without knowing it. You don't have to teach the chunk in your instructions. They will understand while you are showing, demonstrating, modeling, using your body language, intonation, and tone. So it is possible to teach L2 via L2, but there might be certain conditions that you might need, like the affective emotional reasons when you might need to use L1. I hope that I am able to answer your question, İlkay.
Yes, hocam, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Aylin hocam.
Thank you so much, Hocam. Now, if Şevval Aparı is here, we'd like her to ask her question. She had a question for Merve Hocam.
Yes, Hocam. Hello, everyone. First of all, I'm really happy to attend this panel today. I also wanted to thank you all for sharing your precious ideas with us. So I'm an English language and literature student, and teaching English is my secondary field. Merve Hocam, since you're educated at our university, my question is, what could TED training have prepared you for based on the events you faced during your 3 years of experience?
Thank you so much for the question, Şevval. When we were studying at TED University, we as students were occasionally complaining about all the workloads and the countless micro teachings. Melike Hocam, Zeynep Hocam, you may know. But however, now I can see it really clearly that I would be lost without all of those experiences, because we had the chance to practice our teaching over and over and over again. So in our faculty, thanks to our dear professors, I believe we experienced the best training towards English language teaching. Yes, we didn't have, a thesis to complete our, education, but we wrote a lot of, many reflection papers on each topic. So it was really beneficial for us. Also, apart from our practicum courses, I believe I had the further opportunity to experience the field because, TED University provided us further opportunities in this regard. So, for example, I voluntarily served as an English language teacher within the scope of TED Full Support Scholarship Program, and I had the chance to teach to high school students, and it was really, really beneficial for me in terms of gaining experience in the field before I start working. So all of these experiences gave me the chance to be successful in the field, especially in my first year and my first experiences in job interviews, because they ask you to do a micro teaching. So I was experienced, as I can say. So I'm very thankful that I had the chance to got an education like that.
Thank you, Merve. And thank you, Şevval, for your question. So, dear guests, dear colleagues, dear students, I have a tough job to take on now to wrap things up and conclude our evening tonight. It's lovely. It's just amazing. I have tons of notes that I've taken as I listen to our dear panelists. And you inspired me. You became an inspiration for me, and I bet for many of our pre-service students, English language teachers, students along the way who are attending this class. This whole event is originally put together for them, and I really do hope that they are going to walk away with some messages. So it's very difficult to conclude. I just would love to listen to you, but they actually remain longer than we originally agreed on. It's an hour and 30 minutes now. So thank you all. Thank you, our dear panelists, again, for accepting to be part of this education, this training for our prospective English language teachers. It's just very, very important, I think, for them to hear different perspectives, get to know different types of experiences as a, teacher, trainer, academic person, publisher perspective, and a novice, I would say, English language teacher's perspective. It's just amazing to hear all of those experiences tonight. Maybe this is just the beginning for this. We can make maybe series of this in the soon future. This 1 hour and 30 minutes is not enough, but I would like to just thank everybody for their contribution and for their time, and wish you well rest of the evening, and I'll see you around. And one last thing, if I can mention or insert this little detail, I had tons of notes in the chat box. So many of our students actually wanted to ask questions, but considering the time limitations, we couldn't accept those questions. But again, maybe next time we're going to have the chance to ask those lovely questions to our panelists. Thank you for your participation, and I'll see you all around. Be safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for coming. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.